He faked his death to see who truly loved him, but nothing could prepare him for what his wife did that night. The rain tapped softly against the tall glass windows of the Okonkwo mansion, but inside there was no warmth, only silence. Mr. Anthony Okonkwo, a billionaire known across Nigeria for his real estate empire, sat alone in his massive living room. Dressed in a plain kaftan, he stared at the photo of his wedding day. His face, once full of pride and power, was now lined with confusion. Something didn't feel right. He had money, he had success, he had a family. But why did everything feel so fake? His wife Mirabel only smiled when he gave her new jewelry. His daughter Lisa only called him daddy when she needed money for trips abroad. His son Toby barely spoke unless it was about the family business. But tonight something cracked. Anthony had just returned from the hospital. The doctor had confirmed he was perfectly healthy, but during the checkup, he overheard something that broke his spirit. In the hospital hallway, Mirabel had been laughing on a phone call. She didn't know he was behind the curtain when she said, "If this man dies now, I swear my real life will start." His heart sank. He stood frozen, his legs weak. He had to know the truth. Later that night, as thunder rumbled outside, Anthony called his trusted driver and old friend, Matthew. "Matt," he said slowly, "I want you to help me fake my death." Matthew's eyes widened. "Sir," Anthony leaned forward, "I want to know who my family really is. I want to know if they cry for me or celebrate when I'm gone." Matthew scratched his head. "Oga, this one you're saying, it's not a small matter." "I know," Anthony said, his voice trembling, "but I'd rather die a fake death than keep living a fake life." The next morning, Anthony visited his personal doctor, Dr. Lawal, who had once saved his life from a heart attack years ago. "I need your help to pull this off," Anthony whispered. The doctor looked at him for a long time, then nodded slowly. "People don't show you who they are until they think you're no longer watching." And just like that, the plan began. By the end of the week, the news had spread like wildfire. Billionaire Anthony Okonkwo is dead. The cause? Sudden cardiac arrest. A private burial was scheduled. The family, friends, and the media all mourned. But what happened inside that mansion after the death would shock the entire nation. 3 black jeeps parked outside the Okonkwo mansion the day after the billionaire's supposed death. The house was filled with guests dressed in black lace and dark agbadas. Mourners came with low voices and long faces, offering shallow condolences to the family. But inside the master bedroom, behind a locked door, a different kind of scene was playing out. Mirabel Okonkwo, now a widow, stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her black wrapper and dabbing fake tears under her eyes. She wasn't crying, she was smiling. She applied red lipstick, humming softly to herself. Behind her, her best friend Ngozi watched with suspicion. "Mirabel," she said, arms folded, "your husband just died yesterday. Why are you dressing like you're going to Awambe?" Mirabel scoffed and turned. "Nah, baby, I beg, spare me. That man died long before he stopped breathing. Do you know how many years I've wasted being his prisoner in this golden cage?" Ngozi raised her eyebrow. But still what?" Mirabel cut in, laughing quietly. "I gave him children. I gave him my youth. And what did he give me? A cold house and a boring life. This is my freedom party, my dear. Tonight I drink to my new life." Downstairs, Lisa was scrolling through her phone. She posted a black and white photo of her father with the caption, "R.I.P. Daddy, forever in our hearts." But she wasn't crying either. Toby was in the study, already making phone calls to the company lawyer. "Yes," he said calmly, feet on the desk. "I know the will hasn't been read yet, but let's be realistic. I'm the first son. We all know who the empire belongs to now." Meanwhile, in a dusty back room in Enugu, Anthony sat with Matthew and Dr. Lawal, watching it all unfold on a hidden camera feed. His hands trembled slightly as he saw Mirabel pouring red wine into 2 glasses, one for herself, the other for... "Wait," Anthony said, squinting. "Who is that man?" The camera showed Mirabel opening the door and letting in Peter, Anthony's company's financial director. Tall, smooth-talking, and always lingering too long during board meetings. "Peter," Mirabel purred, handing him a glass, "to new beginnings." Peter clinked glasses with her and laughed. To freedom, my darling widow. Anthony's heart broke, his wife celebrating with another man while the rest of the world mourned. She didn't even wait a day, he whispered. Matthew touched his shoulder gently. Ogre, are you still sure you want to continue this? Anthony wiped his face with a trembling hand. Yes. Let's keep watching. I want to see how far they'll go. And far they would go, because by morning, Lisa would list Anthony's antique Rolex on eBay for millions. Toby would order the driver to start preparing documents for company takeover. And Mirabelle would call the lawyer and ask when she could access the life insurance funds. But none of them knew the dead was watching. The mansion was still draped in black ribbons, but inside, darkness had nothing to do with mourning. It had been just 3 days since the billionaire's death, yet the living were already rearranging his empire like vultures around a carcass. Lisa stood on the staircase in high heels and a silk blouse, her phone glued to her ear. Yes, I said $10,000, she said, rolling her eyes. The watch is authentic, vintage, and belonged to my late father. It's a collector's item, and I want full payment in crypto. She turned to the housemaid and snapped. Where's the Gucci bag I told you to bring? The one Daddy gave me when I turned 18. I want to list that next. Meanwhile, in the private study, Toby sat across from Barrister Okeke, the family's lawyer. We can't open the will yet, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. Your father stated clearly it must only be read 30 days after his death. Toby leaned forward, his voice cold. My father is dead. The company can't wait for ghost instructions. I want my name on all the board accounts now. Barrister Okeke sighed. Mr. Toby, with all due respect, that's not how legal matters work. Toby's smile vanished. Then maybe we need a new lawyer. Back in the hidden room in Enugu, Anthony Okonkwo sat frozen, his eyes glued to the screen. They're eating my flesh while I'm still breathing, he muttered. Matthew nodded grimly. The woman you loved, the children you raised, dear strangers. Anthony whispered, I died the moment they stopped loving me. But the betrayal wasn't done. That evening, a shiny black Mercedes pulled into the mansion. The gates opened wide, wider than ever, for Mr. Peter, the financial director and Mirabelle's new lover. She met him at the door in a silk wrapper, her perfume strong enough to choke loyalty. You look beautiful, Widow Okonkwo, Peter smiled, stepping inside. Call me Queen, she replied, laughing. The king is dead. Long live the new reign. They sat by the dining table, once reserved for family dinners, and discussed things that made Anthony's blood boil from miles away. I've been thinking, Mirabelle said, sipping red wine. Why don't we change the company name to Mirabelle Global Holdings? Something that reflects the future, not the past. Peter chuckled. Your husband's memory isn't even cold. Neither was his heart, she replied. He gave me a life of money, but passion, fun. I don't owe him tears. Outside the house, Mama Chinye sat alone under the mango tree, holding a candle and praying in Igbo. May God punish every evil tongue, she whispered. May the dead rise when lies grow legs. Inside the room in Enugu, Anthony wiped his face. I trusted them with everything, he said. My heart, my empire, my name. They've buried you alive, sir, Matthew said quietly. What are you going to do? Anthony sat up slowly, his voice calm but heavy like thunder behind the clouds. I'm going to haunt them while I'm still breathing. The morning sun peeked through the clouds, casting golden rays on the Okonkwo estate. But there was warmth inside the mansion, only the chill of greed thickening like smoke. Mirabelle stepped into the office of Mr. Odu, the family's insurance agent. Her all-black outfit hugged her body perfectly, paired with a luxury handbag and diamond earrings. You would never guess her husband had just died. Madam Mirabelle, the agent said politely, how may I help you today? She gave a practiced sigh. It's about my late husband's policy. I'm here to file the claim. Odu frowned slightly. Already? The funeral is barely over. She smiled faintly. Life must go on, Mr. Odu. We have debts and my children need stability. Odu opened the file. You're listed as the sole beneficiary, 900 million naira, tax-free. Mirabelle's eyes glinted like a thief at night. When can it be processed? In 3 weeks, he said, standard verification protocol. She forced a smile. Fine, I'll wait. Just don't keep me longer than necessary. But outside the office, a small hidden camera installed by Anthony weeks before caught every word. Back in Enugu, Anthony stared at the footage, his lips tightening. So my death is worth 900 million to her? Matthew leaned forward. Oga, she was never your wife, just a well-dressed vulture. That night, Lisa hosted a private dinner with her influencer friends. Candles flickered on the marble table and laughter echoed through the house. I swear, Lisa said, sipping champagne, this man dying was the best thing that happened to me. Her friend gasped, Lisa! She giggled. I mean it. I was living in a cage before. Late nights, Dubai trips. Now I do whatever I want. And the money, her friend whispered. Plenty, Lisa smirked. Daddy left so much behind, it's like winning a jackpot. And the will hasn't even been read. But something unexpected happened that night. As Lisa opened her father's old study to take a selfie, wearing his wristwatch and sitting in his leather chair, she knocked over a hidden drawer. A small black recorder rolled out. She picked it up, confused, and pressed play. This is Anthony Okonkwo. If you're hearing this, I'm not dead. I'm watching. And everything you've done, I've recorded. Lisa froze. Her hand shook, her face drained of color. Back in Enugu, Anthony smiled darkly. Let the fear begin. The next morning, Lisa rushed into her mother's room. Mom, she cried, we have a problem. Mirabelle was applying red lipstick. What is it now? Lisa threw the recorder on the bed. Dad's not dead. He's alive. He's testing us. Mirabelle picked it up, pressed play, and listened. Her hand tightened around the recorder. This cannot be, she whispered. Just then, her phone buzzed. A blocked number. Hello, Mrs. Okonkwo. I believe you're trying to access your husband's life insurance. There's been a hold placed on the file by Mr. Anthony Okonkwo himself. Mirabelle dropped the phone. Lisa gasped. Toby ran in from the hallway. What's happening? Mirabelle's lips trembled. He's alive. The living room of the Okonkwo mansion was crowded that Sunday afternoon. Friends, relatives, church elders, and neighbors had gathered for a prayer memorial. Candles lined the walls. A large portrait of Anthony sat on a white draped table with a giant ribbon that read, Gone Too Soon. Soft gospel music played in the background as people whispered and nodded solemnly. Mirabelle stood at the front, dressed like a saint in her black lace, gently dabbing her eyes with a white handkerchief. Lisa wore oversized sunglasses and chewed gum. Toby paced near the window, pretending to receive calls. A pastor cleared his throat and lifted his Bible. Let us begin this service by remembering the life of our beloved brother Anthony. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A gust of wind blew through the room, making some candles flicker. Everyone turned. Standing at the door was a man in white kaftan. Calm, tall, alive. It was Anthony. Gasps filled the room. Chairs scraped. Someone screamed. One elderly woman fainted instantly. Lisa dropped her drink. Mirabelle's hand began to shake. Toby backed up slowly like he had seen a ghost. Jesus, someone shouted. Is that the dead man? Another whispered, Anthony. Anthony stepped in slowly, his footsteps echoing across the marble floor. He looked around the room, face blank, eyes sharp. Good afternoon, he said. I heard you were praying for my soul. One moved. Mirabelle dropped to her knees. Anthony, is this real? Are you alive? He walked closer, alive and disappointed. Lisa stammered, But we saw your casket. It was empty, he replied coldly, just like the loyalty in this house. Pastor dropped his Bible. My God, it's a miracle. Anthony turned to the guests. Thank you all for coming, but I don't need prayers. I need answers. He faced his wife. Tell me, Mirabelle, why were you planning parties with Peter the same night I died? Mirabelle's lips trembled. It's not what it looks like. Oh, really? Anthony pulled a remote from his pocket and clicked it. A hidden projector on the wall flickered to life. Hidden footage began to play. Mirabelle laughing with Peter, Lisa selling his things online, Toby discussing company takeover. Gasps spread like wildfire. The whole room was silent. Anthony turned to the crowd. "This is my family." Lisa tore off her glasses. "Dad, please." He raised a hand. "Save it. I gave you life. You tried to cash it." Toby stepped forward. "Look, it was a mistake." Anthony's voice rose. "Mistake? You forged documents. You wanted me buried faster than I could rot." Mirabel cried out. "I was hurt. I thought I lost you." "You never had me," he snapped. "You were too busy chasing my replacement." He turned to the crowd. "To everyone here, this is why I faked my death. To expose the truth." Silence, then he dropped the final bomb. "I've changed my will. From today, my estate belongs to the only person who stood by me. Mama Chinyi's grandson, Ebuka. He is my legal heir." Gasps again. Lisa fainted. Toby shouted, "What?" Mirabel collapsed in tears, but Anthony turned, walking out the door just as calmly as he entered. This time, not as a ghost, but as a man risen with fire. The morning after Anthony's shocking return, the Okonkwo mansion was quieter than a graveyard. Staff, guests, light laughter in the kitchen. Just silence. Mirabel sat alone in the once grand dining room, staring blankly at her untouched cup of tea. Her makeup from the night before had smudged under her eyes, and her wig sat crooked on her head. She hadn't slept. She couldn't sleep. The echo of Anthony's final words haunted her like a ghost. "You never had me. You were too busy chasing my replacement." She had gone from billionaire's wife to publicly disgraced fraud overnight. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine snapped her out of her thoughts. She rushed to the balcony just in time to see a moving truck pulling up. "Eviction order, court approved," was printed boldly on the side. A man in uniform stepped out, holding papers. "Are you Mrs. Mirabel Okonkwo?" "Yes," she said slowly. "You have 2 hours to pack. This house now legally belongs to Ebuka Okonkwo." Mirabel's legs buckled. She grabbed the rail to steady herself. This cannot be happening. But it was. Inside, Lisa was crying in her room, makeup running down her cheeks. First, he fakes his death. Now he gives everything to some village boy, she screamed. "How can Daddy do this to us?" Toby barged in, holding his phone. "All our accounts are frozen. He blocked the cards. We have nothing." Lisa's jaw dropped. "You're lying." "Check your balance," Toby snapped. She did, 47 naira and 20 kobo. Just then, 2 men walked in to begin removing furniture. "Please don't touch that," Lisa begged, clinging to the Italian dresser. "That's all I have left." "Madam," one worker said, "we're just doing our job." Meanwhile, at a modest house in Surulere, Anthony stood beside Ebuka, a quiet, respectful boy in his early 20s, wearing clean trousers and a white shirt. "Sir, I don't understand," Ebuka said softly. "Why me?" Anthony looked at him with tired eyes and a kind smile. "Because you're the only one who gave love without price." Ebuka's eyes welled up. "I only cleaned your shoes." "And in doing so," Anthony said, "you cleaned my soul." He handed him a brown envelope. "This is the deed to the mansion, and this," he pulled out a black pen, "is your future. Sign it, and I'll teach you how to lead the empire." Ebuka's hand shook as he signed. Back at the old mansion, Mirabel was now standing barefoot in the driveway, bags piled beside her, watching as strangers carried out the last pieces of the life she once ruled. Lisa and Toby stood behind her, defeated, disowned, and disgraced. Just then, a black SUV pulled up slowly. The windows rolled down. Anthony sat in silence. Mirabel ran forward. "Anthony, please." He looked her in the eye. "I loved you," he said. "You buried me with your greed." Then he rolled the window up, and the car drove away. Mirabel collapsed to her knees, and for the first time since his death, she cried. Ebuka stood silently at the entrance of the Okonkwo mansion, the same place where he used to deliver firewood and clean shoes. Only now, the giant iron gates opened for him. He stepped inside slowly, wearing a clean blue kaftan sewn just for the occasion. Behind him was Anthony, who watched every step with quiet pride. "From today," Anthony said, "this is your home. But remember, wealth doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been." Ebuka nodded. Yes, sir. Inside, the remaining staff stood in a nervous line, drivers, cleaners, cooks. Some had mocked Ibuka in the past, others barely noticed him at all. One of the drivers whispered to the headmaid, "Now this one go now, the firewood boy?" The headmaid glanced at him. Quiet. The dead man came back to life for this boy. That means something. In the main hall, Barrister Okeki arrived with the final documents. "Congratulations, Mr. Ibuka. Everything is legally in your name now. Properties, business shares, accounts." Ibuka's hands trembled slightly as he took the folder. "Thank you, sir, but what if people don't accept me?" "You don't need acceptance," Okeki said. "Just purpose. The same people who laugh today will clap tomorrow if you lead with heart." But not everyone was clapping. At a nearby hotel, Mirabelle, now stripped of all titles, sat with Lisa and Toby drinking sachet water. "I still don't believe it," Lisa muttered. "That boy. That Bush boy." Toby slammed the table. "This is madness. He doesn't have a degree. He doesn't have class." Mirabelle's face darkened. "He doesn't deserve our life, and if Anthony thinks this is over, he's wrong." Back at the mansion, Ibuka took a slow walk through the rooms. Each space whispered memories, some beautiful, others heavy with betrayal. He paused at the dining table and sat in Anthony's old chair. The leather creaked softly beneath him. Mama Chinye, his grandmother, walked in with tears in her eyes. "I used to clean this floor," she whispered. Ibuka stood and held her hand. "Now you'll walk on it like royalty." Anthony watched from the balcony, a faint smile on his face. But downstairs, whispers were growing. Some board members of the Okonkwo group had gathered for an emergency meeting. "This village boy cannot lead us," one said. "We've built this empire with experience, not pity," another snapped. "He's just a phase. We wait for him to fail." But Anthony had already seen it coming. He sent a message to the board. "Ibuka will attend the next meeting, and he will speak. If any man tries to stop him, he's free to walk, permanently." Ibuka's test wasn't over. If he failed, the empire would collapse. If he succeeded, he'd become the most unexpected king in Nigerian business history. The boardroom of the Okonkwo Group Tower was sharp, silent, and cold, like the inside of a vault. Its long marble table was polished to a shine. 12 chairs surrounded it, chairs usually occupied by men who had worn suits longer than Ibuka had worn shoes. Today, those men sat stiffly, murmuring under their breath, and at the head of the table, wearing a dark navy suit sewn overnight by Anthony's personal tailor, stood Ibuka. He looked calm, but his heart was pounding. The head of logistics, Mr. Emeka, cleared his throat. "Mr. Ibuka," he said with a fake smile, "it's not that we don't respect your surprise appointment. But you must admit, leading a multi-billion naira company is not something taught in firewood markets." Laughter rumbled quietly around the table. Ibuka nodded slowly. "You're right, sir. But loyalty is not taught in boardrooms either. I watched how this empire was built, and I also watched how some of you planned to tear it apart the moment my father died." The room fell silent. Mr. Yenka, head of finance, leaned forward. "And what exactly do you plan to do with us, Mr. Ibuka?" Ibuka pulled out a folder. Audit reports, backdated embezzlement, secret side deals with competitors. "Some of you stopped being loyal long before I arrived." Whispers erupted. "I didn't come here to play king," Ibuka said firmly. "I came here to protect my father's legacy. If you work with me, I will honor you. If you work against me—" He paused. "I will fire you." The silence was so thick you could hear paper breathe. Then, to everyone's shock, Anthony walked into the room, slow and steady like a lion checking his den. "I'm still alive," he said, eyes scanning the board. "But I'm done leading. The man you see before you is my choice, and my blood." Gasps. "Yes," Anthony continued, "Ibuka is my son, from a mistake I made in my youth, but a mistake I will never regret again." Ibuka's hands shook. He had never heard this before, but Anthony looked him in the eye. "You passed the test. Now carry the crown." One by one, the board members stood. Some bowed, others nodded reluctantly. Ibuka had won the room. But far away, in a low-lit bar in Lagos, Mirabelle sat across from a dangerous-looking man in dark sunglasses. His name was Dogo, an ex-con and expert hacker. "Can you do it?" Mirabelle whispered, sliding an envelope across the table. Dogo opened it and whistled softly. "Half now, half when it's done." "Exactly," Mirabelle said coldly. "I want Ibuka's reputation destroyed," she hissed. "His name, his face, his everything. I want him crawling back to the village in shame." Dogo smiled. "Say more. By the time I'm done, he'll wish he stayed poor." The final war had just begun. 2 weeks after the boardroom victory, Ibuka had settled into his new life. The mansion was running smoothly. Staff respected him. Anthony, though still quiet, watched him with pride. And in the city, whispers began to spread of a new kind of chief executive officer, young, humble, and ruthless with corruption. But far away, inside a dimly lit cybercafe behind a mechanic's shop in Ajagunle, Dogo was at work. Multiple laptops, red energy drinks, code flying across screens. Target, Ebuka Okonkwo. He hacked into the company's old servers, replaced Ibuka's profile image with one of him washing cars. He forged emails, doctoring a message that made it look like Ibuka had asked for bribes to win a contract. He spread these across fake news blogs. Then came the final strike, a manipulated video. A clip of Ibuka talking about taking back power, twisted into something that sounded like a tribal insult. Within 24 hours, Twitter caught fire. Fake chief executive officer. Fire Ibuka. Uneducated corruption. Social media exploded. News stations picked up the story. Ebuka Okonkwo under fire for bribery allegations. Protesters began to gather outside the Okonkwo Group headquarters. Inside the boardroom, the same men who had clapped weeks earlier now shouted, "Sir, we must suspend him immediately. This scandal could destroy our stocks." One director slammed his fist. "Anthony, this is why we said he wasn't ready." Anthony stood silently as the voices rose. Then he turned to Ebuka. "Speak." Ibuka stood. His face was pale, his hands trembled, but his voice, steady. "I did not write those emails. I did not take bribes. I've never insulted any tribe." Silence. "I was poor, yes. I was unknown. But I've never been fake." He turned to a young IT officer standing by the projector. "Can you trace the origin of the leaks?" The officer nodded. "We tried earlier but were blocked. However, I installed a tracer. We found the IP address." He clicked. A map popped up. Location, a small bar in Lagos. Registered owner, Mirabelle Okonkwo. Gasps. Anthony's face tightened. Mirabelle. Ebuka closed his eyes. His own stepmother, his father's wife, was behind the attack. Later that night, back at the mansion, Ebuka sat alone in the garden. The lights of the house shimmered behind him, but he felt cold. Anthony approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You handled that like a king," he said. "I'm tired," Ebuka whispered. "I know, but real leaders don't rise by applause, they rise by fire." Ebuka nodded slowly, then let the fire keep burning. Meanwhile, across town, Mirabelle received a call. "Hello?" she answered. Anthony's voice, cold, clear. "You failed." She froze. "I warned you once," he continued. "Now it's over. Legally, socially, publicly, you longer exist in our story." Click. Mirabelle stared at her phone, and for the first time, plan came to mind. Just fear. The day of the press conference arrived. The Okonkwo Group auditorium was packed with journalists, investors, and employees, everyone waiting to hear whether Ebuka would step down or fight back. Cameras flashed. Social media streamed it live. Scandal-ridden chief executive officer to address the nation. Ebuka walked onto the stage, dressed in a simple black kaftan, tie, designer shoes, just truth in his eyes. He stood behind the podium. The room was silent. He took a breath. "I was born in a one-room face me I face you in Aba. My mother sold Okapa. My father, I never knew." He paused. "My first job in the Okonkwo family was to clean shoes. I was invisible. I was mocked. But I learned. I listened. And I stayed loyal." The crowd leaned in. So when lies began to spread about me, emails I never wrote, words I never said, I wasn't surprised. I've been lied about before. What surprised me was who was behind it. He turned and nodded at a staff member. The screen behind him lit up. A full investigative video played, tracing the forged documents and videos to Mirabelle's bar. It showed Dogo accepting payment. It showed the real, unedited footage of Ebuka's speech. Gasps filled the room. "And now," Ebuka said, voice strong, "let the truth speak louder than noise." Another screen played a clip of Anthony, recorded just hours before. "I built this empire with my hands," Anthony said, "but my family betrayed me. Only one person stood beside me, not for money, but for love. I name him my son, not just in will, but in heart. He is not a mistake. He is my legacy." The screen faded. The room erupted in applause. Some cried. Journalists jumped to their feet. Tweets flooded the internet. Ebuka's clear truth wins. From shoe cleaner to chief executive officer, the nation's new hero, Anthony Okonkwo admits secret son, hands empire to Ebuka. Outside, crowds gathered, cheering, dancing, shouting his name. Ebuka. Later that night, Ebuka stood at the balcony of the mansion. Below, lights glowed across the city he once walked through barefoot. Anthony joined him, a proud smile on his face. "You did what I couldn't," he said. "You earned it all without losing yourself." Ebuka turned slowly. "But I still lost people, your wife, your children. They hate me." Anthony nodded, then shook his head. "Let them. Some crowns are built from loss." Silence fell between them. "Will they ever come back?" Ebuka asked. Anthony's voice was firm. "The ones meant for you will find you. The rest are chapters you've already read." The wind blew softly. In a small hotel across town, Mirabelle watched the press conference on a cracked phone, sitting on the edge of a stained mattress. Alone, forgotten, powerless. She threw the phone across the room and screamed into the empty night. But one answered. Back at the mansion, Ebuka stood tall under the stars. The poor boy they had once insulted was now the king they couldn't reach. But just when he thought the worst was over, a secret from 23 years ago shook everything he believed.